G'day there guys, Karen here. Back at it again with another episode of r/I Wanna Speak to Your Manager. And in today's episode of r/Entitled Parents, we're going to do a deep dive into the psychology of the Karen. So I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy today's bloody good content. Posted by user Helpfully Unarmed, titled, "Either you give us grandchildren or we're taking you off our will." The title sounds bad, the story is even worse. I never thought I would be writing a post about my own parents here, but here we are, right? For context, my fiancé and I have been in a relationship for the past 10 years, and just recently got engaged. While it's understandable that 10 years might sound a bit too much, we started dating really early, and getting married was not a priority for either of us. We actually preferred to focus on our studies and career for a while. She is a civil engineer, and I'm a medical student after getting a bachelor's and a master's. I do freelancing as a developer to pay for my living expenses. So as we've been a couple for a long time, it's quite common for people to ask us when we're getting married and when we're having kids. While we are getting married as soon as I finish med school, we decided not to have children a long time ago, and we're still very certain of that decision, as both of us are more career than family oriented. However, since the engagement, our families have started to put more pressure on us to get married soon and have children, even though we told them plenty of times that's not going to happen. My fiancé and I live together, and we're completely independent from our families financially. Some time ago, during a video chat, we ended up getting into a heated argument with our families for finally snapping at their ceaseless nagging for grandchildren, and we have been strained ever since. Now, our families asked us to meet them for a lunch in family at my parents' house. We don't live in the same city, but it's close enough that we can go there for something like this, and that's when the following situation transpired. We arrived early enough to help out in preparing everything for the lunch, and for the next hour or so, things were pretty alright. But after we had lunch and we sat at the coffee table to chat, it's customary here, the room got visibly tense. Our parents, both hers and mine, started a speech about how much they put into us, how much they worked for us, and how much family means to them. I was already sensing some crappy thing coming, but I kept listening. Suddenly, they said that during one of their talks, they came to a decision that if my fiancé and I didn't give them grandchildren, after all they had done for us, we would be cut out of their wills. Their reasoning was this. 1. My brother is a gay man, and as of now, have no intention of adopting or any alternative to have children, and I was the only option on continuing the family. He was not there, and is as mortified as I am. 2. She is the oldest sister. Her younger sister is still in high school, and thus must set an example by having a family and continuing the family. Now, if that's not psychotic, I have no clue what is. We quickly looked between ourselves and immediately left their house. We haven't spoken to them since, but as far as we're aware, we're disowned by now. I never thought I would have to go through that, just because I don't want to have children, but it just shows how much entitlement they think they have. Cheers. Edit. I did not expect this to grow so much in just a few hours. Thank you everyone for the replies. Sadly, I don't think I'll be able to respond to everyone, so I'll just clear a few things here. My fiancé and I have absolutely no interest in their inheritance. We've been fine on our own for a long time and can take care of ourselves. Thus, we have absolutely no intention of contesting their will. We don't need that money and we don't want it. I only posted this here due to the absurdity of their actions. We have decided to cut contact with them and uninvited them from our wedding. My brother is giving us full support on this, and as he is my best man, this already means the world to me. It's regrettable that it came to this outcome, but we are not going to let them run our lives. Some people asked us why we don't want to have kids. There's a few reasons for that, especially the fact that we are both extremely focused on our careers. Having a child is a responsibility to raise someone and give them the affection, lessons, and time needed. Neither of us want to go through that just to birth someone. Also, we have firm beliefs that the world already has enough people without us putting someone else on it. Lastly, neither of us really likes kids. As bad as that might sound, we have no intention of ever giving birth to a child. Trickster Trio says, best thing to do now is act like that money doesn't exist, now that you know it comes with strings, and that they'll use it to try and control you. Theoretically, if you did have a kid, what's stopping them from using the inheritance as a tool to make you raise it the way they want you to? Exactly. Rescind their power, and if you're ever in a position where they try that crap again, the correct response is to smile and say, we understand. It's your money. Don't worry. We can take care of ourselves. What happens after that is on them, but they at least know you can't be bribed or guilted. Posted by user Pokemom95, titled, Entitled Mother Calls Police Over My Clothesline. Our cast are me, entitled mother, and the very nice police officer. This takes place in my hometown. A house had been built right next to ours over the course of the past year and a half, and a small family moved into it. We never met the family, as we are usually not ones to go out of our way to meet people, so it came as a huge surprise when this happened. We have a backyard, which is private. It is surrounded by a fence with a locking gate. Entitled Mother's house had a deck that overlooked our backyard. Midwinter, our dryer decided to die, and we had to take all our clothes to the closest laundromat to dry at least once a week. Once spring rolled around, I decided to put a clothesline in our backyard to help save money. A few weeks went by, and at least once a week, I would be out there hanging loads of laundry to dry. On one such occasion, our neighbor, entitled mother, was out on her deck talking on her phone. I paid her no mind, and just hung up my clothes to dry. As I was headed back inside, I heard the dreaded banshee screech that was entitled mother. She says, "Hey, boy!" I'm a woman, but I have my hair cut short with most of it buzzed, so I can see why she assumed I was a boy. I looked over, mostly because of the noise she made, not because I thought she was talking to me, but unfortunately she was. She says, "You can't hang those out here." "What, my clothes?" "Yeah, you can't hang your filthy underwear out here where I have to look at them. What if my kids see? Are you some kind of pervert?" "Lady, it's my backyard. If I want to hang my laundry to dry in my backyard, I can." And with that, I flipped her the universal sign to go pleasure herself and went inside. About a half hour later, I hear a knock on my door. When I answer it, there's a police officer standing at my door, who says, "Good afternoon, ma'am." He knew I was a woman, and yet somehow the entitled mother didn't. "We received a call about a pedophile in the residence trying to flash children. Would you happen to know anything about this?" "Seriously?" Entitled mother was just screaming about me for hanging my underwear on my clothesline out back. "I assure you nothing else is happening. Do you mind if I take a look?" And me, with nothing to hide, say, "Of course." I showed the officer my clothesline, and we could clearly see entitled mother glaring at us with a smug look on her face from her deck. The officer thanked me, went to speak with entitled mother, and that was that. Posted by user Zucchini My Weenie, titled, Entitled Parent Calls Me a Junkie and Tries to Steal My Life-Saving Medication. Hey guys, long-time lurker, first-time poster. Just for reference, this just happened yesterday. I was on the bus heading home from the drugstore after re-upping my prescription. A bit of backstory, I am unfortunate enough to be HIV positive, and because of this, I have to take antiretroviral drugs every day, otherwise the virus will damage my immune system further. Because of what's been going on recently in this country, I've mainly been working from home. As a result, I have really fallen off when it comes to my appearance. On this particular day, I just had on some really baggy sweatpants and a janky-ass hoodie, so I guess I could see how from a certain perspective, I could look a little homeless. After a couple of minutes on the bus, I noticed this little kid staring at me, and I guess my appearance might have frightened him, but as a person of color, I'm used to getting a couple of odd glances, so I just went back to minding my own business. At this point, I started to take my medication while on the bus, mainly because I didn't want to forget later. While this was happening, I got a sharp reminder that people were watching. Cue entitled parent of scared kid screaming at me, "How dare you! Do you people have no shame? I was shocked that all I could say was, what? Entitled parent continues by yelling, what do you mean, what? Who do you think you are? Stop popping pills in front of my kid in a public place, you filthy junkie. At this point, I started getting mad. I held up the bottle and tried to explain that it wasn't what she thought it was, but before I could finish explaining, she tries to snatch the bottle while shrieking about how I am a leech to society and how if I was raised right and had real parents, I wouldn't be a disgusting addict. That last one really made me pretty mad, because both my parents worked really hard and are both wonderful people, so I kinda lost it. I said, what the frick would you know about parenting? The day your kid moves out will be the happiest day of his life. By now, she completely had forgotten about the drugs and straight up launched herself at me on some Superman crap and started clawing at my face. So boom. At this point, Entitled Parent and I had the attention of pretty much the entire bus, including the bus driver. Luckily, we soon came to a stop and the bus driver helped remove her and her kid from the bus, but not before yelling some questionable stuff on her way out. Posted by user FredZRed, titled, My entitled mother complains that disabled people are hogging the disabled seating on a bus. She isn't disabled. My mother is a mega entitled Karen. I am no longer in contact with her, but I have heaps of stories about her when I was younger, which you guys seem to like. So here's yet another one for you. Enjoy. This happened when I was 14, and we had recently moved to another country. The town was small, and there wasn't a whole lot of public transport. It's New Zealand for ya. Only a few taxis and one bus which had wheelchair seating. The wheelchair seating area was at the front of the bus with 3 seats on one side that would fold down from the wall to sit on, or a wheelchair pram could sit on the front of one of them. One day, I was with my mum, and we had to travel to the next town over, but mum's car was at the mechanics. So we took the bus that departed at the same time every day and returned a few hours later. Only one trip to and from the towns in the area each day. The bus arrived not long after we started waiting at the bus stop. When we got on, there were already people seated in the disabled seating. A mother with her baby in a pram beside her, and a middle-aged man in a wheelchair that lived in our town. There were seats available at the back of the bus, which I assumed we would both sit at. Nope. Karen, addressing the woman with her baby in the pram, says, "Excuse me, do you mind moving your pram so I can sit there?" Sorry, but no, I can't move my pram. There's nowhere else for it to sit without it being in the way. But it's in my way. Can't you just sit in another seat? No, ma'am, I'm not moving. Go sit somewhere else. It seemed like this woman had encountered Karens before and didn't take their BS. Karen says, "I have a disability though, and can't walk all the way to the back of the bus." I say, "No you don't, Mum. Stop it and sit up at the back. Stop making a scene." Karen, her face going red from me calling her out on her BS, says, "Fine, whatever." And she reluctantly went to sit in another seat. Me, to the woman with the baby, says, "I'm so sorry, ma'am." Look, I was so embarrassed by my mum's behavior. This was around the time when I started calling her out on her entitlement, and I was sick of her doing stuff like that. News travels fast in a small town, so her actions made other people look at me as well, and I didn't want them thinking I was anything like her. I am not and never will be. Thanks for reading. Posted by user Carlia Jameson 2936, titled, Entitled Mother Demands Absolute Silence in an Apartment Complex. So I live with my parents and brothers in an apartment complex with 11 other units. There would be a noise complaint that would go around, but all neighbors don't take much notice or mind it very much, since, after all, it's an apartment complex with families living their lives. So about 3 years ago, Entitled Mother, the 78-year-old woman, complained to us, accusing us of slamming our door, to which I can assure you we weren't, since our door has a dampener. This went on for a few months until she wrote in chalk, "Unit X, stop slamming your door." We tried to complain about it to the body corporate, but since Entitled Mother was a part of it, nothing was done. She consistently complained about the noises of a mother and son talking in normal speaking voices while walking out of the building, as well as our door and another family living upstairs who were raising a baby. A bit of a side note here. She tried to whinge and say, "We're old people, we don't want noise." But you decided to move near a busy road and a railway corridor. How can you expect no noise? Or better yet, blame us for it? Entitled Mother's daughter was so sick of her mother's exasperated intolerance for room-level noise that she moved out. One day, after returning from school, I decided to do some chores and take out the trash, and upon re-entering the building, she wrote in chalk on the wall again, accusing me of slamming the door and giving a specific timestamp to when I came home from school. Again, we tried to report her, but she pulled strings to have it dismissed. After accosting a number of families and parents with children living in the same complex for noise, and many failed attempts at trying to report her for harassment, all the families have taken it upon ourselves to make plenty of noise. A dad and his children love screaming into the corridor where she lives and ding-dong ditching her before running back into their apartments, with the direction of their dad. A mother and a daughter cough loudly when walking through the lobby, and my family, we make sure to slam the front door hard and loud, and speak loudly when we're entering the building. If she wants to complain about noise, we will give her noise. She began to harass and single out the mother and daughter, to which they responded, "There are families living here. If you don't want noise, then why don't you move into a nursing home? I know quite a few." Entitled Mother is still persisting with these complaints today, to which she is not getting what she wants, and I think she should take the advice on the nursing home. Posted by user The Rumour Hargreaves, titled, "Should we start selling Captain America coffins in that case?" I can't wait to leave the South. My husband told me this in the car this morning and gave me the okay to post. He's not on Reddit, but laughed when I told him it was the same sub where I bitched about my aunt. Slight backstory. So he works at a comic shop in our conservative tourist town. It's already a weird dynamic, but somehow it's brought out the worst of the worst. Somehow, like this isn't every industry right now. In customers, mostly vacationers, but not exclusively. Our mask laws have been very loosely enforced, and he is usually the only person in the store, so he only fights them so hard before just trying to stay out of their space. But now we have mandatory mask laws, so people need to get over themselves. Lol. He had a woman come in yesterday, and the following is the lovely conversation he recounted. Entitled Mother comes into the store. No mask. Husband points to the sign and tells her to put one on. She pulls out one of her bags, but stops and stares at him and says, "Oh good, you sell masks here." "What? No, sorry, Entitled Mother cuts him off. "Of course you do. Your mask has the spider guy on it." My wife's friend made this, but sorry if there was any confusion. He is the most patient person on this earth. "Well, that's false advertising. My son would wear that mask. You need to start selling them." Once again, this one was made for me by a friend. It's not for sale. "Well then, when will you start to sell them?" "We won't be. We don't plan on turning a profit on the pandemic." "Well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And you're not going to give my son your mask?" "No, and I don't see your son. He's waiting in the car. I want to speak to the owner." He was obviously a manager, so she had to go a little beyond normal Karening. "Your kid is in the car. In July. We're not going to make a profit on this. You can find masks online. That's like asking why we don't sell Captain America coffins. We're not cashing in on the crisis. Owner isn't here. Come back tomorrow if you want to talk to him. Bring a mask and don't leave the kid in the hot car." Stupid woman stormed out. He says he kicked himself because he came up with a million comebacks once she was gone. Waiting to see if she comes in. The owner is an a-hole and proud of it, so I hope she does. Edit. Everyone saying selling masks makes sense. It totally does. If things get even more dire and they see the need, it's speculation on my part, but I assume they would maybe do it at cost. For now though, it just feels like profiting off a tragedy. It also really hadn't come up from customers in the first place, until she rode her broom into the shop. Our brains were mostly broken by her demands and child endangerment. Posted by user Ink in the Water, titled, "You're a writer? Great! Do my kid's homework and give her free English lessons." I'm on my phone, I'm not American, English isn't my first language. Mildly useful information. In my country, it's customary to live with your parents until you get married. Please don't give me crap for this. They're lovely and I adore living with them. Background. At the time of this story, I, at the time 24 female, was riding a career high. I was working for a famous, in my country, screenwriter, and we were doing projects for Netflix and Spamazon. I put writing my book on hold for this. Before anyone asks, both shows went into development hell and will not be released internationally in any case. My parents and I were moving into a new fancy apartment building that has its own cafe. You cannot access the cafe unless you're a resident or have been given a pass. I was in there one day, getting coffee and chatting with some other residents while waiting for some things to be delivered. You all know what ED and DK means. If you thought of erectile dysfunction when you read ED, I wish he had it so I would not have to suffer through this ordeal. So, a nice couple was telling me about how much I was going to like living there and how nice everyone in the building is, when in walks ED with EK, the 8-year-old girl in tow. A cold wind blew in, and my steaming cup of coffee turned tepid. Entitled Dad, who I have never seen before, points at me and says, "Ink in the Water, you're the famous writer." I writhed under this accusation, as I was in no way famous and had no idea who this lunatic pointing at me was. The couple backed away, and Entitled Kid runs at me and hugs my leg. Thrown off balance, I dropped my coffee onto my foot, which turned back to scolding the moment it touched my foot. Howling in pain, I hobbled to a sofa and sat down as the staff scrambled to get me some ice. Entitled Kid still had a death grip on me, and I had to pry her off. The nice couple was handing me napkins when Entitled Dad plowed through them and pointed at me again. "Ink in the Water, you look just like your mum. I met her in the lobby and she told me you're a writer and that you were here. This is my kid, Miss Kleptomaniac." Entitled Kid was now setting down her backpack next to me. "I'm sorry, I have no idea who you are." "I'm Mr. Arsehat. So, since you're a writer, you can do Entitled Kid's homework for her. And give me your number so I can set up a time for you to give her English lessons every day." This is about when I thought I was having a stroke. I'm a teacher now? Is this kid opening up a textbook? Look, I think you have the wrong person. I don't teach. I know, but you can start now. It's our duty to teach the youth. So I'll just pick Entitled Kid up in an hour, okay? I actually have to run. I'll get your number from your mum. And he walked out. Walked out, leaving me with this loud, belligerent girl, who insisted on going through my purse. She then proceeded to shove her homework at me and demanded that I do it while she played on her iPad. Spinning with pain and confusion, I pried my purse away from Entitled Kid, who immediately began to scream. I hobbled out of there, wincing, while Entitled Kid stayed inside and demanded that the staff give her cookies. I made it to the lobby, where Entitled Dad was terrorizing others. He looks at me, and apparently loses what was left of his fragile mind, and says, "What are you doing here? I told you to finish Entitled Kid's homework. Did you leave her alone in the cafe?" "Yeah, that's not my job, and yes I did. I need to get something on my foot. You can go get her." Entitled Dad proceeds to bar my way to the elevator and demands that I wait until he gets Entitled Kid so we can all go up to my apartment and I can do her homework there. This is where I kind of lost it. I yelled for security and they came running, took one look at me leaning against the wall in pain and escorted me into the elevator. Entitled Dad was yelling at me the whole time, saying he would be up there soon. So here is where it gets worse. In the elevator, security informed me that he was a realtor and not a resident. He would not be allowed up to my apartment after what I told them. Upstairs, my parents were horrified and my mother apologized for telling anyone what I did. Apparently, he told her and some others that he was a resident. Entitled Dad cornered her in the lobby later and demanded my number. She gave him a piece of her mind, told him I was injured, and told that his foot would be someplace unpleasant if he or his kid ever approached me again. He backed down, but told her I should be more understanding because Ink in the Water is old enough to get married and have her own children. Who stays unmarried at 24? She had him escorted off the premises. He is now banned entry for harassing residents. Entitled Kid stole what she thought were mints from my purse. They were herbal laxatives. Crappy treats for little freaks. Posted by user Swan Medic. Titled, "No ma'am, you cannot demand we hire your son." A few years ago, I worked at a store that dealt in used electronics. It was mostly movies, games, and pop culture merch, but we also sold a variety of items like cameras and headphones. It was a very popular store due to partly the low prices and the fact we generally paid more than our competitors for used goods. But customers also liked the atmosphere. The staff was very close-knit and management encouraged a casual approach to customer service. So not only was it a cool place to shop, it seemed like a cool place to work, which it was. This meant that during all times of the year, we were flooded with applications. We actually had a new apps box behind the counter that had to be emptied for filing once a week because it would fill up. As a retail establishment, we did have a moderate turnover, but the store was small and only had 11 to 15 people employed there at any given time, so we only occasionally picked up new hires. This didn't stop people applying, especially recent graduates who were hoping that the cool video game store could be their first job. I was working at the front counter at the time Entitled Mother walked into the door. This happened a while ago, so this conversation is of course paraphrased. She approached me, and I smiled and greeted her. I say, "Hi, how can I help you?" "Hi, can I speak to the manager?" "Oh, of course, but he's currently in the office on a call." He was. "Is there something I can help you with before he's available? My son turned in an application a month ago, and he hasn't heard anything back." I'm apologetic and say, "Oh, I'm sorry ma'am. We get a lot of applications, to the point where our employment manager can't call people back if they aren't accepted for an interview. This should be mentioned on the application, but I'm sorry if your son wasn't told that. However, we keep applications on file for 6 months, so if a position opens up, we could still possibly consider him for employment." She huffed and rolled her eyes, giving me a sarcastic laugh, and says, "That's ridiculous. Are you guys prejudiced against hiring boys or something?" I blinked at her. I was one of 2 girls employed at this location compared to 11 guys. Of the 4 people visible behind the counter, I was the only girl. "Ma'am, I'm one of the only girls that works here." Entitled Mother seemed to notice this and began to splutter a little because she was getting flustered. She continued laughing sarcastically through her sentences. "So what are you, prejudiced against hiring hard workers?" I honestly didn't know what to say. I was trying not to laugh because it was such a weird response, so I said, "No, we just have a lot of applicants and the chances of getting picked are low. It's not personal. But if you'd still like to ask the manager about it, I can go see if he's finished on the phone." And she's huffing and still laughing and's like, nah, never mind. This is just ridiculous. I'm taking my business to a competitor instead." She stomped away, and after she left, my co-workers and I just looked at each other and started laughing. We chatted about it for a little while, and when the manager came back from the office, we told him about the encounter. He basically said what I said, that it was one application in a sea of many, and it wasn't personal. Honestly, if you come into the store and demand the manager to hire your kid, it's probably only going to hurt their chances. Nobody wants to deal with someone's crazy parent hovering around the business all the time. Alright, and I think that's where we're going to leave today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed the content today. If you guys loved watching it as much as I loved making it, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel already if you haven't. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below, maybe like the video, who knows. I'd also like to take this time to thank my awesome Patreon and channel members. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably be homeless on the streets of Ireland, crying, Irish dancing all over town. It would just be a mess. But no, for real, you guys are up on the screen now. Thank each and every one of you guys. And if you personally want to join the club yourself, there are links down in the description below. There's also the join button next to the subscribe button. Small monthly fee, but hey, it goes a long way to help me create more awesome content. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you do have a lovely day, night, sleep, evening, day at work, day at school, whatever you're up to. I hope you keep awesome today. You're looking amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.